Good morning, friends. Good morning, friends. Hello, hello. How are you all? Pray you're well. Hello, hello, hello. Hey, how are you this morning? Give it a moment here. Let a few folks come along. Hey, John, good morning to you. Hope you're having a good day on this steamy first week of September. Hey, Vicky. Hi-ho. Hi, Karen. Good morning to you. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're keeping cool. The humidity here is real. We've been feeling it, so hope you're doing well and enjoying these late summer days. Oh, very nice. Had some time in Maine, visit with Jamie. All good things. Totally. Hey, Donna, good morning to you. Hope you're doing well. Hope Phyllis is doing well. Morning, this hot, hot. It is hot, hot, hot. It is steamy. Good morning, Irene. Great to see you. Glad you're here. It is. It is. This. You know, these warm days are really kind of something in the beauty of it. You know, it's one of those. You know, our inability always to be happy. You know, like in the middle of winter, it's like it's so cold. I'm just so ready for it to warm up, and then it warms up, and it's so hot. I'm so ready for it to cool down. Like, you know, there's always a thing, but I think, you know, the great invitation is to be just a part of, to enjoy what the day brings. I think is maybe our best invitation. Very good. Any help for the branch dinner tonight is appreciated, Vicky. That's great. She'll make it. All right. Okay. Good morning, friends. Let's get going. It is the 5th day of September. On this Tuesday at 11:11, and we begin another week of our journeying together in this little digital space. And I am glad that you're here, and I'm glad that you're a part of this journey. That I pray it brings you something wonderful to you in this day. So there's the Proverbs are, you know, probably some of the most practical wisdom that we can come up with. You know, we were told in seminary that the Proverbs were really what when rabbis were getting formed at young ages, and when I mean young ages like 9, 10, 11, 12, what they were committed to reading was Proverbs. They were, because there was a sense of real practical wisdom in them, that ways that we should be, how we should treat one another, how we can be fostered up, and that may or may not be true. I don't know, but what I do know about them is that they do hold, I think, a particular grittiness, maybe, that other scripture doesn't necessarily have. Other scriptures often, you know, either story or talking big, you know, big thinking, big thoughts, and all this sort of stuff. But Proverbs is really about how are we going to be in this world, and what is right and good and true and moral. And so I want to spend a little time with it today. And this is from the 6th chapter of Proverbs. A lot has been made of this passage, and I actually just want to go through it and kind of unpack it a little bit, because you know, things get stuck in language, you know, and things get stuck thinking we know what they mean, or maybe thinking we understand what they mean, but just to have a moment of reflection, you know, and it's a moment of reflection about what Proverbs says is what God hates. Now, okay, you all might be moving away from me on the Group W bench here. Like, oh boy, here we go. Like, we've been nice and friendly up until now, but now we're gonna move. Now we're getting into what God hates. And so before we get into it, I just want to kind of caveat even this a little bit, is because it's to say, when we talk about what God hates, we're talking about that which stands in the way of us being able to receive God's love, of the world being able to receive God's love, and that if there's a thing in the way, that's an obstacle to that. It is that is going to generate the ire. Now, I don't really believe in the nature that God's sitting around hating things and liking things. It's not, God doesn't have a Facebook profile where like, hate, angry, like he's not casting emojis on the world. That's not how God works. But this sense of, if we are to be children of the Most High, if we are to be receivers of grace and goodness, if what we're born for is to dwell in peace and in innocence, if that initial prospect is an initial promise is exactly what what everything is pointing us towards, then the things that get in the way of that are going to be the things that are not of God. So this is the line from Proverbs, and I want to break these 6 things out. So we'll just take a minute and do it. Don't worry, it won't be bad. We'll all get through it together. There are 6 things the Lord hates, 7 that are detestable to him: haughty eyes, lying tongues, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that devises wicked schemes, feet that are quick to rush into evil, a false witness who pours out lies, and a person who stirs up conflict in the community. Ouch. So, all right. So let's unpack this a little bit. Let's unpack this a little for just a moment. So the first is this notion of haughty. So what are these 6 or 7 things that God hates? Haughty eyes. So haughty eyes is a way of saying it's in our parlance we would talk about it as looking down on other people, as looking down on them, to placing ourselves in a superior position and looking down on someone as less than, and now why is that a problem? And why is that, of all the things that God could hate? I mean, and there's a lot of things. There's a lot of things that we can certainly say, well, that's an obstacle, and that's more of an obstacle than this, and that's more of an obstacle. And that's what I think is so powerful about this journey in Proverbs, is that it's actually pulling out things that you and I might not immediately say, like, oh, well, that's a big deal. Why is that a big deal? But these are the things the Scripture tells us are actually the biggest deals, or some of the very biggest deals. And this first one, the haughty eyes, that we might look down on somebody. Now, why is that a problem? It's because it kind of breaks the shalom of the world, like as it breaks the peace of the world. That if you're looking down on somebody, if you're kind of looking down your nose, saying, "Oh, that person, I can't believe they're doing that." If we find ourselves in that position, and which we all do, like it happens. But But the problem with that is because what it's doing is it's placing us outside of the love of God in our humanity. You see, because as long as we're looking down on another human being, as long as we're saying, "Oh, I'm so much better than that person," as long as we're in that business, or those people, I can't believe those people. Can you believe those people are doing that? Well, as long as we're in that place, what happens is we are no longer a human among humans. We have now elevated ourselves to some sort of status. Now, whatever status that is, we can talk about later. But we've taken ourselves out of humanity. We've placed ourselves. We're actually in the business of stealing some authority from God with our haughty eyes, with our looking at the world, looking at this world through the lens that we are better than others in this world, and this notion that this invitation that we're to be humble in the true sense of the true root of the word, this humility, which is this humus, this earth, that we are all made of this same earth. We are all made of the same grace from God that has breathed into our lungs, and we are made of the same dust of God that was formed and animated into life. That is our state and our status, and we are the same as every other person in that. And that it's our haughty eyes that stand in the way. It's our looking down our nose, if you want. It's this sense, and that God hates this. The second thing is hands that shed innocent blood. Now we can, I hope, in some ways we're not in the business of clubbing people with a shillelagh on every, any given moment, but I think there's a deeper understanding of this. It kind of, I heard it talked about by this story of a little girl who had a pet turtle, and she's a little 3-year-old girl, has this pet turtle, and it pulls the turtle out of the tank one day and looks, and the pecks on the shell, and the turtle won't come out. So she goes over to her mom and she says, "Mama," and holds up the turtle, and mother looks at the turtle and like taps on it, like, and turtle is like, boop, like not coming out. And I think turtle's dead. So mom finally sits down the daughter, and it's like, I think the turtle has passed. I think the turtle died. And little girl's not really, she's 3. She's not really at that point yet. And she says, "Well, make him come out." She says, "No, he's gone away. He's and so she becomes inconsolable. She just cries and cries and cries over her turtle, and there's this way in which and finally Dad gets home, and she's like, "Oh God, thank God! Can you please talk to your daughter and help her with this, help console her?" And so she's still crying and weeping about her turtle, and holding up the turtle and looking at it, and he says, "You know what? The turtle's gone away, and so we should have a funeral." That's what Dad comes up with. He says, "We should have a funeral." Still, little girl's not getting it. She's like, "What's a funeral? What's that?" He says, "Well, like having a birthday party, when you have a birthday party, like, which celebrates somebody's arrival, well, this is like a goodbye party. This is like a way in which we say goodbye to them, that we have this party." And so she brightened up a little bit. She says, "Well, will there be cake?" He says, "Yeah, we can have cake at the funeral. We can have will there be the balloons?" She says, "Yeah, we can have a balloon at the..." So she starts to get excited about this funeral that they're going to have for their turtle, and this little girl starts to get all animated and excited about it, and says, all of a sudden the mom looks down, and without being poked at or prodded at, the turtle is alive in the kitchen, is kind of trying to escape, in his little slow turtle way, trying to kind of move on out. And so Mom picks up the turtle and kind of triumphantly comes into the room. It's like, "Oh, the turtle's actually alive. He was just a little scared, and here he is. He's come out." And she sets him down, and he's just and the little girl is so happy and so surprised, but then all of a sudden realizing that the party that she was just planning to have isn't going to have to happen, because now we don't have to say goodbye to the turtle. She looks at the turtle, and looks at her mom, looks at the turtle, looks at her dad, and says, "Let's kill him." I know that was a long way to go, but I think that when this sense of God, what God hates in the hands that shed innocent blood, is not just about whether or not we're going around hitting people in the head with a hatchet because they disagree with us. It is much deeper than that. That it's the sense that we're actually, in this little silly little story, often willing to do what has to be done to remove the obstacles and to get what we want. And this imposition of getting what we want, getting our party, even though and even though we might not be in the business of resorting to murder any particular moment, we can cut people off, we can cut people down, we can cut people to the quick, we can cut people in all manners of ways that would spread some innocent blood. The third is a heart that devises wicked schemes. One of my favorite movies is a movie called The Mission. If you haven't seen it, it's like almost 30 years old now. So if I'm not gonna, there's gonna be spoilers here. So, this movie is about these missionaries that go into the jungles of South America in the 16th century, and they're seeking to create this mission station with the natives there, and there's this great and beautiful story about these truly repentant and heart-filled missionaries that go in and do this work. And however, as the political winds shift and change around the mission, unbeknownst to them, the army is going to come and wipe this mission out, because they have all of a sudden ended up on the wrong side of an imaginary line set by men thousands of miles away from them in Europe. And at the very end of the movie, with the mission having been destroyed and everything, with this almost utopian, beautiful place that was created in the world destroyed, and the efforts of the people of Christ to stand against it, there's the two kind of Machiavellian priests, the two kind of political priests that are talking about what has taken place here. And one simply says, kind of waxing philosophical, says, well, that's the way of the world. And the other one, being a bit more repentant about what has happened and what they've done, says, that may be the way of the world, but it is the way of the world because we have made it so. When we rejoice in our little schemersons, when we rejoice in being shisty, and this is not that we don't find ourselves in shystiness every once in a while, what we find ourselves though is often in these ways that our heart devises wicked schemes. And you notice it doesn't say our head devises wicked schemes. It says our heart devises wicked schemes. It's that in our wanting, in our plotting, in our way, we make the world. We affect the world in such a way that we have a love to its shystiness. Now, the next one. And I'm gonna go back because I skipped one, but I want to loop it in with one a little bit later. So if you're following this in Scripture, you might have noticed I missed one, but trust me, I don't worry. I've got my hands firmly on the controls. We're gonna be okay. That this notion of this the love of plotting and placing our political lines that are going on comes to destroy the good and the true, the beautiful, comes to destroy the mission as it does in the film, and I think it's true in our own lives, and it's something that we've always have to watch that pesky little heart of ours. Next is a feet that rushes quickly into evil. So, feet that rush quickly into evil. Is the place where we connect with the ground, right? Like that's where our feet connect to the ground. They're the place that we stand on. They are the lowest and most base form of our body, and by virtue of that, there are these there's this way in which this notion of feet aren't just like we're kind of looking down at our feet and they're talking at us like, hey, let's go run into the thing. It is let's go run into evil. It is this sense that our most base self, our most earthly connected self, is actually this place where where we get run off into the passions. This notion of, if we got the whole plate of brownies, we get the whole plate of brownies in front of us, and we just stuff ourselves in gluttony with the plate of brownies. Where there's these notions where we quickly rush into, where we launch ourselves into the passions, because this is the thing about passions. What do passions do? They make us passive. That the passions possess us. They take us over, and they take away our own agency. I think we see this most in addiction. That people who struggle with addiction, there's this way in which once they begin cycled in their addiction, there's this way that they simply go from stimulus to response to stimulus to consumption to stimulus to consumption with no response in between, with no hey, maybe it's a good idea if I don't drink the second, fifth of vodka today. But there's this sense of, and that actually what ends up happening in people who recover from addiction is that there's this space of the angels that happens from the time that they have the impulse, the passion attacks them, and the response of what are they going to do? What are they going to? How is their body going to react? How is their most base? Where are their feet going to take them? Where is their body going to? And there's a space in between, and that's the space that the angels, that's the space that the Spirit gets to inhabit. And that when we get overwhelmed by our desires, we get overwhelmed by our feet that want to rush us into evil, it becomes a thing that walls us off from everything that's good and true and beautiful. Now, if you're paying attention, if you're following along at home, the one I skipped over is a lying tongue. So we've had haughty eyes, we've had a lying tongue, we've had hands that shed innocent blood, we've had a heart that devises wicked schemes, and we have feet that rush us into evil. We're just a mess. Good Lord, help us. But these are all parts of our personal component. Now, there's two more things that will go on. Now, I'm onto the and I want to talk about these together. That lying tongue that was early on in the chapter that I skipped over, or in the passage that I skipped over, and this notion of of what comes next, which is this sense of a false witness who pours out lies. You see, a lying tongue is just that. And these need to be compared because they really are quite different things. A lying tongue is just that. It is the thing in our head. It is the words of our mouth that would again appropriate that which is the Lord's. It would take away the authority that is God's. You see, our tongues the power of our tongues is that they can shape reality. Like, just if you don't believe me, if you have a wife or a husband or a partner or somebody out there, and they say, "Do I look fat in this?" Think about the answer to that question. There's true. There's you have the possibility to shape your reality, the reality of the dinner that you're about to go have. You can shape it right there by what you will say or not say. Tell me I'm wrong. That this is this notion of our but the lying tongue is the tongue that refuses to speak that which is real. That is actually obstinate against the reality of the world as it is, and would shape reality in its own image. That's the power of the lying tongue. It is an entirely self-serving thing, and it is our kind of appropriating and stealing from God's authority. Because what God does is give us a reality, and we have to contend with it. And denial is not just a river in Egypt. Denial is actually can be a lie. Now, sometimes we need these things. Sometimes we're, and this is not to say we're either doing these things or we're not doing these things. These are things that we all have on board. These are things that we all have these in one form or another. And it doesn't mean that that Jesus doesn't love us or that God isn't calling us into relationship. It means these are the places when we see them, we can turn from them. We can make a different choice. Now, as we've gone from eyes and tongues and hearts and feet, now in the second part, which is this lying piece, which is this a false witness who pours out lies. Now that is taking a lying tongue, and that's actually that is a different, and it's actually a markedly different thing. It's actually a categorically different thing, because now it's no longer about you. The lying tongue is about you taking your own authority to shape the world in the which way you want to do it, by bending and breaking that which is really real and actually true. The false witness who pours out lies. Now the false witness that's kind of a clue here, because in terms of these are the same terms that you would find in a legal matter. So this is like testifying, so what this means is there's actually a third person involved here. This is actually you talking to somebody else, but a third person who's testifying about somebody else. So this isn't about you bending your reality. This is about creating a reality that destroys somebody else. I mean, we covered lying. Okay, lying's bad. I know this is a newsflash, but this is when we don't just bend reality, but we bend reality to hurt somebody else. Now notice we've gone from the eyes and the tongue and all the different parts of ourselves. These last two are external to us, and that's why I'm making a point of it. They're apart from us. They are a third person that we are witnessing to the world, and we are casting pain upon the world. Now, if you're starting to figure it out, that this hierarchy is actually that we're not in that haughty eyes, this kind of sin of pride as well. We're all prideful sometimes. We all do this. Like this is not, and it's a thing that yes, God hates it, but it's also this way in which we're it's perhaps the thing that we're most redeemable from. But as we descend down through these things, what we're discovering is that they're actually getting more and more base, and they're actually getting more and more destructive, and that calling out at the desire to destroy the reputation of another person, the desire to bear as if you were standing on the witness stand and casting lies on somebody else, is actually it's no longer about you casting relationship anymore, is it? Or you kind of bending the world to your own sense in your own lies. It is now about actually pouring evil and pain and injury onto another person. Are you seeing how these things kind of work their way into the descent into hell? And the last one is this: a person who stirs up conflict in a community. Oh no! Yeah, a person who stirs up conflict in a community. At the very bottom of this journey into the things that God hates is when we work in the division of one another. Now, I'm going to be really straightforward to you right now. Look at your media footprint. I don't care who you listen to. I don't care what channel pops in. I don't care what pop-ups come on your phone. I don't care what channel you listen to, or if you try to be balanced and listen to both sides. I don't care. What I'm asking you to consider is the media environment in which you and I currently live, in which we are bombarded from. I actually have notifications I can't shut off on my phone, that they are driving into my consciousness, this way in which I am supposed to be separate, and that I am supposed to be in conflict with my brothers and sisters up and down Rock Street. It's for real. That action is happening in the world right now. Now, I'm not saying this is new to the world, but I am saying it's probably more pervasive right now than any other time in my lifetime. And that's just the media environment. That's just the environment. So what I'm asking you to consider is consider the language that you permit to go into your head. Consider the language that you permit to assault your eyeballs, because you can think we're aware of it, but we're not. Or we can think we have a mastery over it, but it marinates us, and it can consume us, and it can drag us down to the very bottom of hell in the very sense of being the person who stirs up conflict in community. So I have an axiom around this, which and this is it, and it's, it might be a little gross, but we'll all be all right. It's okay. But I just believe this, that the person, and this is, I think, how we can best address this, both in our life and both with ourselves and both with the world out there. That the person who stirs the pot licks the spoon. And here's what I mean by that. That if we find ourselves in this place where we're talking with somebody and they're just like, I can't believe this is happening politically. I can't believe that's happening on our streets. I can't believe that's going on at the library. Whatever the thing is, that its function is to drive a wedge in conflict in community, and that seems to be what's happening. The best thing we can do is simply point out the fact they're holding a spoon. Point out the fact that they're actually stirring things in not to make them more integrated, but to actually confound and muddy the waters and muddy the things all together. That there are ways in which we can respond to this. There's ways in which we can speak to it. The first question that I always like to ask is, why are you telling me this? Do you enjoy living in a city where people are divided with each other? Why are you telling me this? Do you enjoy, creating hate in other people's hearts? Because you know what? Here's the great thing about ourselves. We all like it. We all like to be right. We all like to be on the winning side. I do. You do. It's all a part of us. The great Solzhenitsyn said, that the line between heaven and hell runs down the center of the human heart. And until we truly understand that we have that capacity in ourselves, friends, but to speak the truth of it, to speak the truth of the way, our media landscape is not trying to inform us anymore. It is trying to divide us. And I don't care what you believe. What you believe to be true about what you're experiencing in the media environment is secondary to the division that it is sowing. And the way that this is incorporating our churches, friends. I'm going to wrap it up here because I know we're going long today, but I'm fired up, and I wanted to, and I just this passage has been on my heart, and I wanted to share it with you. But we need to start asking ourselves, and we're asking the other the people that we encounter that are kind of sowing these seeds of dissent and that are creating these problems. Do you enjoy inflicting pain on people? Because we know we don't. It's not what we want to be. That's not who we want to be. It's not who God calls us to be. And yet there's these ways in which we get sucked into them. Where they're so seductive. It feels so good to be so self-righteous. It feels so good. And I really simply want us to remember that's in the hardest part, some of the ways that we cut ourselves off from the love that God has for us, from the grace that God has for us. And so I invite you, if you encounter people in your day that are sowing division, just show them the spoon. Show them the spoon that they're holding, and show them, because so often I think we don't even know that we're holding the spoon sometimes, and that God's calling us into this radical place of the world, this radical place of healing the world. I want to end today with this story. The early church, all the way back. What happened in the early church was the way that they were radically countercultural to the Roman world. Now, some of you heard me tell this before, but I think it speaks more to our day and age, and it speaks more to these 6 things that God hates. That in the Roman world there was basically and Bible speaks to this a lot about the widows and the orphans. So why is the Bible so hung up on widows and orphans? Because the thing is, in a tribal society, and particularly in a Roman society, in a Roman urban society, if you didn't have family, or in particular if you were a woman and didn't have family, if you were a child and didn't have family, you would literally starve to death in the streets. There were no social programs. There were no social workers to come by. There were no food pantries. This was not a part of the pagan world. And so what the Christians started to do was simply act in this countercultural way. They started to go when people. So if you had a baby that you didn't want in the ancient world, there were 2 things you could do. You could go down and you could throw it on the common fire. Yes, people burned their babies. Or you could take it, if that was a little too tough for you, you could take it to the edge of the woods and you could set it at the edge of the woods, and the wolves would come and take it away. The predators would come and kill the baby. That was the 2 expected ways. In fact, there was an ordinance passed in Rome that said you have to stop aborting babies in the Tiber River because it was actually polluting the water supply. That's not making it up. Go look it up. The Christians, what they started to do was actually walk around and collect these babies. When the widows and the orphans, that they would hang out in the woods, and when somebody would come out and drop a baby off, they would pick it up and raise it as their own. When they started to act counterculturally to the way in which the world was formed. Now, they would also take in these widows that would be on the side of the road, literally starving to death. They would be begging, and they would likely starve to death, or they would be in prostitution. But often widows were of a certain age where that wasn't an option anymore. So they would end up starving to death on the side of the road. The Christian communities would come along and they would take these women in, and then what they do, they would teach them a skill, like they could be weavers or something like that. So they'd become an integrated part of the Christian community. And then all these babies that they start collecting, well, they have these widows also that can also help raise these babies. But then what happens? Okay, now this goes on 5 or 10 years. And you see in the Christian community over there, that baby that you took to the wood line and set there for the wolves to come and eat, well, now there's a little you running around there. And you see the full potential and the beauty and the majesty of that little child that's now being raised in this community over there that you have nothing to do with, because they are largely an anathema and they're untouchable in some ways. Friends, our invitation is I think still as present, and to be as countercultural, to stop participating in the divisions of the world. Now, the divisions of the world we might not be throwing babies in the water supply, but there are ways in which we are participating in just as egregious stuff that God hates, of dividing the love for our neighbors all around us, that we might not agree with them. Of course we don't agree with them. But the agreement has nothing to do with whether we should drive wedges between one another again and again and again. This is the level of spiritual maturity. Rob Canavan, that Ephesians 4:15, right on point, brother. Like, this is that we speak these things, but they don't break our relationship with people. They don't need to break our community. They don't need to break we can say this is the way we understand it. And we can be in relationship with the people that we understand it. Friends, I know this was a long one today. I know this is a big one, but it's been on my heart for a little bit, and I hope you'll journey with us and hold on to this, and know that we're in these things together. We're in this journey together. That the greatest thing we can be in this journey is not in the business of breaking our communities, breaking our associations, breaking our churches, over fighting about the things that the divider wants us to fight over. That in fact, the greatest things we can do is continue to participate with the people that, and right alongside, continue to live in this counter-cultural way of not being an MSNBC or a Fox News person or a whatever person, but we can be a child of God, made in the image of God, seeking to bring peace and reconciliation and joy and a love of the innocence and the beauty that's right before us every day. That's my hope for all of you. Sorry we're so long today, but peace and grace to you all, and we'll pick it up tomorrow with another 11:11.